There is a town in Texas where the mayor is a goat. Not metaphorically, not as a joke someone made once and forgot about. An actual goat was elected to office in the 1980s, drank reportedly 40 beers a day, and was eventually killed by his own son in a fight over a female. The grandson was then elected, and a disgruntled citizen castrated him. The mayor's testicles were found in the man's freezer. The goat was drinking beer again by the next day, and the dynasty continues. That is one of the entries in this list. We have not even gotten to the alien grave yet. Texas has 268,820 square miles. That is bigger than France, and most people see about 4% of it before they declare they know the place. Barbecue, cowboys, oil, big cities, sure. But nobody tells you about the abandoned $2 billion atom smasher with 14 miles of flooded tunnels under the farmland, or the fake Prada store in the middle of empty desert that got robbed within a week of opening, or the retired plumber who covered his entire house in 50,000 beer cans, or the con man who sold investors a skyscraper measured in inches instead of feet, and then won in court. We are counting down 15 places in Texas, so bizarre, so unexplainable, and so thoroughly documented that you will question whether reality has a quality control department. If you are the kind of person who needs proof that the world is stranger than any fiction, subscribe to this channel, because this is what we do. We find the things that should not exist and then prove that they do. Let us get into it. Number 15, Hutto. Welcome to the hippo capital of Texas, which is a title that exists because in 1915, according to local legend, a hippo escaped from a circus train at Hutto's depot and got stuck in the mud of a nearby creek. The locals were apparently so entertained by the recapture effort that they adopted the hippo as the high school mascot. Today, Hutto is 30 miles northeast of Austin, and the entire town is committed to the bit. Dozens of decorated hippo statues line the streets, sit outside businesses, and guard schools. The main statue is named Henrietta. The high school teams are the Hutto Hippos. Here is the catch. There is no definitive proof the circus hippo actually existed. The story has every hallmark of a small-town legend that got retold enough times to become fact. But Hutto has committed to it with an intensity that borders on civic religion. Questioning whether the hippo was real in Hutto would be like questioning whether barbecue needs sauce in Central Texas. Technically, allowed. Socially inadvisable. This is a town that decided to define itself by one afternoon in 1915 when a hippo may or may not have gotten stuck in mud and then built an entire identity around it. That is either beautiful or unhinged. Probably both. Number 14, Sweetwater Rattlesnake Roundup. Every second weekend of March, the town of Sweetwater, about 40 miles west of Abilene, hosts the world's largest rattlesnake roundup. Over 30,000 visitors show up to watch thousands of western diamondback rattlesnakes get caught, weighed, displayed, milked for venom, and yes, cooked and eaten. You can eat deep-fried rattlesnake. That is a real sentence about a real event. The roundup started in 1958 when local ranchers and farmers needed to control the rattlesnake population that was threatening livestock and children. Texas looked at a genuine pest control problem and said, you know what this needs? A beauty pageant and a frying pan. There is a Miss Snake Charmer contest. There is a gun and coin show. There are snakeskin boots, hat bands, and belts for sale everywhere. The JCs who organize it collect thousands of pounds of rattlesnakes annually. The event is controversial because animal rights groups have protested it, and that is worth acknowledging. But for the community, it is a tradition rooted in agricultural survival that evolved into one of the most uniquely Texas events in existence. The fact that 30,000 people travel to West Texas every March to watch snakes get milked and then eat them for lunch is the kind of detail that makes you realize Texas operates on a different frequency than the rest of America. Number 13, Paris, Texas. There is an Eiffel Tower in Paris, Texas. It is 65 feet tall, which makes it about 1/10 the size of the original, and it is wearing a giant red cowboy hat. The hat was added specifically to make the Texas version taller than the Eiffel Tower replica in Paris, Tennessee. Let that sink in for a moment. Two American towns named Paris both built Eiffel Tower replicas, and Texas added a cowboy hat to win the height competition. The tower sits outside the Love Civic Center on the south side of town, about 100 miles northeast of Dallas. It lights up at night. It is free to visit. The town's greeting is "Bonjour, y'all," and they are completely sincere about it. This is competitive absurdity executed without a trace of irony. Kids climb on the base. Tourists take photos. And somewhere in Tennessee, there is a slightly shorter Eiffel Tower without a hat, quietly losing a rivalry it probably did not know it was in. Texas did not just build a replica. They saw that someone else had one and said, "Ours needs a hat." That is not tourism. That is a statement of values. Number 12, National Museum of Funeral History. In Houston, at 415 Barron Springs Drive, there is a museum dedicated entirely to death. Not in a grim way. In a genuinely fascinating, oddly life-affirming way. The National Museum of Funeral History is the largest collection of funeral artifacts in the United States. It is owned by a funeral company, which is either the most logical or the most unsettling fact about it depending on your perspective. The exhibits include the actual hearses used for President George H.W. Bush and Princess Grace of Monaco. There is a detailed history of how embalming became popular during the Civil War, because families needed to transport soldiers' bodies home. There is an entire section on why Abraham Lincoln was embalmed and touched up during his 3-week train journey from Washington, D.C. to Springfield, Illinois. There are papal funeral rituals and vestments. There is celebrity death memorabilia. And then, there are the Ghana fantasy coffins. These are hand-carved wooden coffins from Ghana shaped like whatever the deceased loved most in life. Fish, chickens, airplanes, cola bottles, Mercedes-Benz cars. A person who loved fishing gets buried in a giant wooden fish. A person who loved luxury gets lowered into the ground inside a hand-carved Mercedes. One TripAdvisor reviewer wrote, "It might seem macabre, but it is definitely worth visiting." Translation: you will walk in expecting to feel uncomfortable, and walk out having learned more about human culture in 2 hours than most museums teach you in a week. The Ghana coffins alone are worth the trip. A museum about death that somehow makes you feel more alive is exactly the kind of thing that only Texas could pull off without blinking. Number 11. Monahans Sandhills. There are 3,840 acres of active sand dunes in the middle of West Texas oil country, and you can rent a plastic disc for $2 and surf down 70-foot dunes that literally changed shape overnight. The park is surrounded by oil pump jacks. The sand reaches 130 degrees at midday in summer. There are no marked trails. You just walk into the dunes and explore. Entry is $4. But the detail that makes Monahans genuinely unusual, and not just scenic, is the forest. Monahans Sandhills is home to one of the largest oak forests in the world, and the trees barely reach your waist. The Shinnery oaks grow 3 to 4 feet tall above ground. That is it. Full-grown ancient trees that you could step over, but their root systems reach 70 to 90 feet deep beneath the sand to find water. An entire forest anchored by roots deeper than most buildings are tall, and the whole thing looks like a collection of shrubs. The official state tourism description says the park transforms itself almost daily, which is not marketing. The wind literally rebuilds the landscape every night. You could visit on Monday, and the dunes would be in different positions by Wednesday. Indigenous people lived on this land for at least 12,000 years. The town of Monahans was created as a water stop for steam engines. The contrast between Sahara-like dunes and petroleum infrastructure is surreal. Picture this. You are standing on a 70-foot sand dune in the middle of Texas. Oil pump jacks are visible on the horizon. Beneath your feet, ancient oak roots reach deeper than a 7-story building. The dune you are standing on will not exist tomorrow. The wind has already decided to put it somewhere else. Number 10. Marfa Lights. On Highway 90, about 9 miles east of Marfa, the Texas Department of Transportation built an official viewing platform with benches and informational panels. It is free. It is open every night, and people come from around the world to sit on those benches in the desert and watch the horizon for mysterious glowing orbs that have been documented since 1883. The Marfa lights split, change color, drift, vanish, and reappear. The most credible scientific explanation is that they are headlights from Highway 67 refracting under specific atmospheric conditions. In other words, Texas built an official viewing platform for what is probably car headlights and became internationally famous for it. But here is the detail that keeps the mystery alive. The lights were documented in 1883, before automobiles existed. That part, the headlights theory, does not explain. Nobody has a definitive answer, and the ambiguity is the draw. Some people see lights, some people see nothing. Both groups leave the viewing platform satisfied, because the experience of sitting in the West Texas desert at night watching the horizon is its own reward, regardless of what appears. The Marfa Lights Festival happens every October. The nearby Chinati Foundation houses 100 untitled aluminum works by Donald Judd in former military artillery sheds, and it is considered the most significant permanent minimalist art installation in the world. Tours are $25, Thursday through Sunday. Downtown Marfa has been described as looking like it was designed by Wes Anderson, and that checks out. A town of 1,800 people in the desert that became an international art destination because one sculptor moved there in 1971 and spent 23 years transforming it. Welcome to Marfa. Nothing here makes sense, and that is the point. Number 9. Bracken Cave. Around 20 miles northeast of San Antonio, less than 10 miles from Interstate 35, there is a sinkhole. It is 650 feet long and 100 feet wide, and from March through October, it houses up to 20 million Mexican free-tailed bats. That is the largest bat colony in the world. More bats than the population of Mexico City. The nightly emergence starts at dusk and takes 4 hours. The bats spiral upward from the cave mouth like a living tornado, gaining altitude in a column that can be seen from miles away. Their wings create a sound like soft, constant rain. Red-tailed hawks circle the column, picking off stragglers. You can feel the breeze from 20 million sets of wings on your face. The colony has existed for over 10,000 years. Females return each spring to give birth, and by mid-June, the population doubles as pups arrive. Up to 500 bats share a space the size of a single page of paper. Inside, temperatures exceed 104 degrees. One preserve docent described it as a giant incubator. These bats consume over 100 tons of corn earworm moths and crop pests every single night. One bat eats its body weight in insects between sunset and sunrise. Texas is the battiest state in America, home to 32 of the nation's 47 bat species. Bracken has the world's largest colony. The Congress Avenue Bridge in Austin has the largest urban colony, at 1.5 million. Public emergence tours run $25 from May through October through Bat Conservation International, and they sell out. BCI bought the cave in 1992 and has expanded the preserve to 1,458 acres, specifically to buffer against San Antonio's urban sprawl creeping along one of the fastest-growing highway corridors in America. The bats are literally losing ground to subdivisions. 20 million bats emerge from a sinkhole 20 miles from a major interstate, and most commuters passing by have absolutely no idea. If you've made it this far, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel and sharing this video with your friends and families. It's completely free, and we bring new videos about our country. Number 8. The abandoned superconducting super collider. Beneath the farmland around Waxahachie, 35 miles south of Dallas, there are 14 miles of underground tunnels that were supposed to house the most powerful particle accelerator ever built. The superconducting super collider, nicknamed the Desertron, had a planned circumference of 54 miles. That is 3 times larger than CERN's Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland. Ellis County was selected because it sits on Austin Chalk, a limestone formation ideal for tunneling. Construction began in the late 1980s. 14 miles of tunnel were bored. Millions of tons of soil were removed. 8,000 people had jobs. Then the budget ballooned from $4.4 billion to an estimated $11 billion, and Congress pulled the plug on October 21, 1993. The tunnels flooded. The shafts were capped. The buildings now house a chemical manufacturer. And here is the part that stings. In 2012, CERN's Large Hadron Collider discovered the Higgs boson, the fundamental particle that gives matter its mass. The machine that made that discovery exists because the Texas machine does not. The construction manager, Joe Borre, still keeps memorabilia from the project over 30 years later. He said they carry wonderful memories of what we did, how we did it, and then the letdown. Translation: this man spent years building the future underground, and then watched Congress bury it. You cannot visit the tunnels. They are on private property and full of water. But knowing they are down there, 14 miles of abandoned scientific ambition under Texas farmland, might be the most haunting entry on this entire list. America's greatest scientific what-if is not in a museum. It is under a cow pasture south of Dallas. Number 7. Cadillac Ranch. 10 vintage Cadillacs from model years 1949 through 1963 are buried nose first in a cotton field west of Amarillo, along Old Route 66. They are planted at the same angle as the Great Pyramid of Giza, which is either a deliberate artistic statement or the most pretentious parking job in history. Created in 1974 by the art collective Ant Farm and funded by eccentric Amarillo millionaire Stanley Marsh III, who insisted on the numeral 3 instead of 3 because he thought Roman numerals looked too pretentious. The man buried Cadillacs in a field and thought Roman numerals were excessive. The cars represent the evolution of the Cadillac tail fin. Visitors are encouraged to bring spray paint and add to them, and they do. The layers of paint are inches thick. Thousands upon thousands of coats, applied by millions of visitors over 5 decades, have buried the original colors under a geological record of aerosol art. Your paint will probably be covered by the next visitor. This is art designed to be defaced, rebuilt, and defaced again. An anti-precious monument in a state that takes its monuments very seriously. The installation was actually moved in 1997 from its original location to escape Amarillo's urban sprawl, which means the sprawl chased the Cadillacs, and the Cadillacs retreated further into the desert. Stanley Marsh III was also responsible for Ozymandias on the plains, a pair of giant stone legs with socks on them, positioned to face Lubbock. Many believe they were specifically designed to moon Amarillo's rival city. Whether that is true or not, nobody in Amarillo seems to mind. Cadillac Ranch is free, open 24/7, and sitting in a working cotton field. The panhandle wind never stops. The paint fumes are real, and somehow, this field full of half-buried cars is one of the most visited art installations in the state. Number 6. The Beer Can House. In Houston's Rice Military neighborhood, at 222 Malone Street, there is a bungalow covered entirely in over 50,000 flattened beer cans. Garlands of beer cannons and flip-tops hang from the eaves and tinkle in the breeze like the world's most alcoholic wind chime. The yard is covered in inlaid concrete punctuated with marbles, rocks, and metal pieces. A retired Southern Pacific Railroad upholsterer named John Milkovish started this project in 1968. He hated throwing things away. Over the next 18 years, he covered every exterior surface of his house in flattened beer cans arranged in quilt-like patterns. Coors cylinders became whirligigs. Rows of Texas Pride and various light beers became wall panels. His wife Mary explained the situation simply. John thought beer cured everything. Translation: John thought beer cured everything, and when it did not cure everything, at least he had building materials. He died in 1988. Mary welcomed visitors until her death in 2002. The Orange Show Center for Visionary Art purchased the property in 2001, and a $125,000 Houston endowment grant helped restore it. A quote by John is painted on an inside wall. It reads, "They say every man should leave something to be remembered by. At least I accomplished that goal. Houston has no municipal zoning laws, which is how a man was able to cover his entire house in beer cans without anyone legally stopping him. Weekend tours run Saturday and Sunday from noon to 5, and admission is free, thanks to sponsorship from St. Arnold Brewing Company, which is the most appropriate sponsor in the history of corporate sponsorship. The pull tabs tinkle in the Houston breeze. The craftsmanship is genuine." And one man's refusal to throw away an empty beer can became a nationally recognized folk art monument. If you have made it this far, consider liking this video and subscribing. It is completely free, and we bring new content about the strangest, most overlooked places in America. Number 5. Cathedral of Junk. In a residential neighborhood in South Austin, at 4422 Lorena Drive, there is a 3-story, 33-foot tall structure built entirely from over 60 tons of discarded junk. Car parts, bicycle rims, road signs, toilets, surfboards, neon signs, doll heads, tennis rackets, a Statue of Liberty replica, helmets, loudspeakers, metal barriers, anything that could be stacked, wired, or wedged into place. It is not welded. None of it. 60 tons of junk held together by improvisation and whatever structural logic Vince Hanneman. The man who started building it in 1988 developed through trial and error. The structure has multiple stairways, observation platforms, secret chambers, and a throne room where Hanneman sits and answers questions from visitors. He told one interviewer, "I wanted to regain control over it. You know, I have a life. I have a life. I am sick of this. I just want to get out of here. But no, I have no control. I could not tear it down." Translation: the junk won. The man tried to quit his own backyard art installation, and the junk refused to let him. In 2010, the city of Austin tried to demolish it. Austin's entire brand is Keep Austin Weird, and the city then attempted to destroy the single weirdest thing in it. Volunteers helped stabilize the structure. A structural engineer signed off on it. Chosen community pressure saved the cathedral from the city that is supposed to celebrate exactly this kind of thing. It is open by appointment. Call ahead. A $5 donation is requested. Daily visitors are limited to 200 to 300 people. Park 1 block away to respect the neighbors. It has hosted weddings, bachelor parties, school field trips, and senior citizen tours. Some visitors cry. Hanneman is not sure why. The cathedral is lit by neon at night, and Hanneman is still adding to it. It is a living piece of art in someone's backyard, and the city that almost killed it is now the city that proudly claims it. Number 4. Prada Marfa. On US Route 90, about 37 miles northwest of Marfa in the tiny community of Valentine, there is a building that looks exactly like a Prada boutique. Glass storefront, clean luxury lines. Actual Prada shoes and handbags displayed in the window. The door does not open. There are no employees. There are no customers. The building is not in Marfa, and it is not a store. Prada Marfa is a permanent art installation created in 2005 by Scandinavian artists Michael Elmgreen and Ingar Dragset. It was stocked with real Prada merchandise from the fall 2005 collection. Within 6 days of opening, it was robbed. Every piece of merchandise was stolen, and the exterior was spray painted. It was restocked and reinforced. The replacement shoes were all made right-footed to prevent theft. They were stolen anyway. The building was designed to never be repaired. It is meant to slowly decompose into the desert as a commentary on luxury and obsolescence. The Texas Department of Transportation classified it as a museum to avoid having it removed as illegal roadside advertising, which is a bureaucratic solution, so Texas it deserves its own historical marker. A fake store with no customers, no employees, and no merchandise for sale in one of the emptiest stretches of highway in America, in a town with fewer than 100 people, visible from the Amtrak train, referenced in a Beyoncé video, and robbed despite being designed to be worthless. That is not art. That is a philosophical argument wearing a glass storefront. Picture this. You are driving US Route 90 through the Chihuahuan Desert. Nothing in any direction. Flat scrub to every horizon. Then a Prada store appears, alone, pristine. Real merchandise in the window. And the door does not open. You cannot buy anything. You cannot go inside. You can only stand in the desert and wonder what the point is. Which, of course, is the point. Number 3. The world's littlest skyscraper. In 1919, the oil boom had turned Wichita Falls, Texas, into one of the fastest growing cities in the state. Over 20,000 new settlers had poured in. Office space was desperately needed. Enter J.D. McMahon, a contractor who pitched investors on a 480-foot skyscraper that would have been the 6th tallest building in the world at the time. Investors rushed in. McMahon collected $200,000, which is roughly $3.7 million in 2025 dollars. He used his own construction crews. The building went up fast, and when it was finished, it stood exactly 480 inches tall. Not 480 feet, inches, 40 feet tall, 10 feet wide, 18 feet deep, interior floors measuring 9 feet by 12 feet. which is approximately 108 square feet per floor. That is smaller than most walk-in closets. There were no stairs in the original construction. McMahon packed his bags and left Texas. The investors tried to sue, but the blueprints said 480, and 480 is exactly what was built. The scam was so elegantly simple that it held up in court. The unit of measurement was the only thing anyone forgot to check. The investors wanted to tear it down out of sheer embarrassment, but then Ripley's Believe It or Not featured it in the 1920s as the world's littlest skyscraper, and the building that was supposed to humiliate a town became its most beloved landmark. It survived a fire in 1939, multiple tornadoes, decades of neglect. It was restored in the early 2000s and now houses a consignment boutique called Hello Again. It is a Texas historic landmark and listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The building stands at the corner of 7th and LaSalle in downtown Wichita Falls, and when you see it, you will understand exactly why one investor reportedly burst out laughing. A con man sold a skyscraper measured in inches to a roomful of oil millionaires, built exactly what he promised, and disappeared with $3.7 million in today's money. You have to respect the precision, even if you cannot respect the ethics. Number 2. Legitas. Welcome to the only town in America where the mayor has hooves, a drinking problem, and a family history that includes patricide and a politically motivated castration. Legitas is an unincorporated community along the Rio Grande in far west Texas, 95 miles south of Alpine, near Big Bend National Park. In the early 1980s, Houston businessman Walter Mischer organized an election for the tiny community. A local named Bill Ivey, offended that an out-of-town businessman was running, nominated his beer-drinking goat. His exact words, according to ABC 13, were, "If some old goat from Houston can become mayor of Legitas, my beer-drinking goat can become mayor." So I contested that election. The goat lost the first year, but won the next. The campaign slogan was, "You just have to give a darn." Clay Henry. I became nationally famous. He appeared in travel guides, was featured in Texas Monthly, and drank Lone Star beer tilted back with his teeth. He reportedly consumed 35 to 40 beers a day, which is either extremely impressive or extremely concerning, depending on your relationship with both alcohol and livestock. He was killed by his son, Clay Henry II, in a drunken fight over a female goat, headbutted to death. The original Clay Henry is now stuffed and on display at the Starlight Theater in Terlingua, 15 minutes down the road. Clay Henry III was elected next, defeating a wooden Indian and a dog named Buster. In 2002, 2 years into his term, a Val Verde County man named Jim Bob Hargrove, reportedly tired of seeing perfectly good beer wasted on a goat, castrated the sitting mayor under cover of darkness. Hargrove was arrested and charged with animal cruelty. The mayor's testicles were discovered in his freezer. Clay Henry III recovered and was drinking beer again by the next day, which is either the most resilient political comeback in American history or the clearest sign that Texas governance operates on a different plane of reality. One journalist from Atlas Obscura described the situation with remarkable precision. It would not be slander to say that he is a murderer, that he killed his father in a fight over a female. In fact, if you called the Legitas mayor a filthy, drunken goat, you would be right. That is, quite literally, what he is. Today, Clay Henry IV holds the office. He lives in an enclosure at the Legitas General Store, which the store owner says is for his own protection, not the people's protection. The current mayor has reportedly developed a sweet tooth and now prefers Smirnoff Ice and moon pies over beer, which suggests that even goat politics evolve with the times. You can feed him pellets for 50 cents. The town has had goat governance for over 40 years. Nobody is asking for term limits. Picture this. You are standing in front of a dusty general store on Highway 170. The Rio Grande is visible in the distance. The Chihuahuan Desert stretches to the horizon. You are feeding pellets to the sitting mayor of a community that has had goat leadership for 4 decades. The stuffed body of the first mayor is on display at a restaurant 15 minutes away. A man was once arrested for castrating the third mayor. And you are here, in the desert, at the edge of Big Bend, thinking about whether this is the strangest thing you have ever seen. It is not. That distinction belongs to number 1. Number 1. Aurora Cemetery. In a small, quiet cemetery in the town of Aurora, Texas, about 30 miles northwest of Fort Worth, there is allegedly an alien buried in the ground, and the Texas Historical Commission put up a marker acknowledging it. On April 17, 1897, at approximately 6 in the morning, according to a report published 2 days later in the Dallas Morning News by reporter S.E. Hayden, a cigar-shaped airship came sailing out of the sky and crashed into a windmill on the property of Judge J.S. Proctor. The craft exploded. Judge Proctor's flower garden was destroyed, and among the wreckage, the townspeople found the remains of a pilot described as not an inhabitant of this world. An Army Signal Service officer named T.J. Weems speculated the pilot was from Mars. The locals, being Texans and therefore hospitable even to extraterrestrials, gave the pilot a Christian burial in the Aurora Cemetery. A stone marker was placed on the grave with a crude etching of the craft. This was 1897, 50 years before Roswell, 6 years before the Wright brothers' first flight. Whatever crashed in Aurora did so in a world where human flight did not yet exist. The grave marker was eventually stolen. In 1973, MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, investigated. They found a replacement marker that appeared to show a flying object and got metal detector readings from the grave. The Cemetery Association denied permission to dig. In 2008, the History Channel's UFO hunters reopened a sealed well on the property and found metal fragments with unusually high aluminum content, inconsistent with 1897 technology. The Cemetery Association again refused exhumation. In 2024, a local committee removed the memorial stone and all the mementos. Their statement: tourism does not have a place on holy ground. A bare dirt patch now sits under a tree where the alien was supposedly buried. But the Texas Historical Commission marker remains on the fence. It reads in part, "This site is also well known because of the legend that a spaceship crashed nearby in 1897, and the pilot, killed in the crash, was buried here." In 1980, Time magazine interviewed 86-year-old Aurora resident Etta Pigues. She said the reporter wrote it as a joke to bring interest to Aurora. The railroad bypassed us, and the town was dying. Translation: the alien might have been invented to save a town that was already dead. A newspaper reporter in 1897 may have created a UFO crash story to attract attention to a dying community that had been bypassed by the railroad. And it worked. Over 100 years later, people still come. An annual Aurora Alien Encounter Festival has been held since 2016, drawing about 1,000 visitors per year. The alien has been nicknamed Ned. The town's official website acknowledges the incident, whether it is real, a hoax, or something in between. The story did exactly what it was designed to do. It put Aurora on the map. A town that the railroad abandoned was saved by a story about something falling from the sky. The grave has no headstone. The memorial has been removed. But the Historical Commission marker stays. And the question remains, what crashed into Judge Proctor's windmill on April 17, 1897? In a world where airplanes did not exist? Nobody knows. Nobody will ever know. And that, more than anything else on this list, is what makes it the most unusual place in Texas. These 15 places are real. The alien grave, the goat mayor, the con man skyscraper, the beer can house, the buried Cadillacs, the fake Prada store, the 60-ton junk cathedral, the flooded atom smasher tunnels, the 20 million bats, the mysterious lights, the sand dune forest with 90-foot roots, the death museum, the cowboy hat Eiffel Tower, the Rattlesnake Festival, and the Hippo Town. All of them verified. All of them documented. All of them in a single state that most people think they understand. Texas is 268,820 square miles of verifiable strangeness, and the weirdest places are always the ones hiding in plain sight. The state that most people associate with straightforward cowboy simplicity is actually one of the most bizarre, inexplicable, and reality-defying places in America. If this video made you question whether any of these are real, good. They all are. Like this video if you now need to visit at least one of them. Subscribe, because if an alien grave, a goat dynasty, and a $2 billion abandoned atom smasher were hiding in one state, Imagine what we are going to find next.